Hello, good morning. My name is Paolo Alcini. I'm the head of healthcare data within the task force for data analytics and methods at the agency. And I would like to welcome you to this webinar with regards to the HMA-EMA Catalogue of real-world data sources and studies. So welcome, everybody. I would like just to start with a couple of housekeeping rules. So, first of all, please note that this webinar is being recorded, and afterwards we are going to publish it on our EMEA YouTube channel and the EU Network Training Center platform. In case you experience some issues during the webinar, you can contact virtual meetings at emea.europa.eu. Also, throughout the session, we are going to use Slido to ask you questions and to allow you to provide some comments. Please note that the interaction with Slido is voluntary, and you may opt out to remain anonymous using this tool. And if you choose to use Slido, you consent to the processing of your personal data as explained in the EMEA data privacy statement for Slido. Next one. Just here some detail on how to use Slido. You can use either using the QR code or the name there, so RWD_catalogues and the passcode EMEA 2024. We are going to ask you one question with regard data sources, and also the Q&A session will be still open throughout the webinar. If you have if any of your questions are not addressed during this session, feel free to contact us via the details that are present in the HMA-EMA Catalog website. At this stage, I will pass the floor to Peter Arlett and Jeppe Larsen, that are the Big Data Steering Group co-chairs. So, Peter, over to you.
Thanks very much, Paolo, and it's a great pleasure to give a few introductory remarks before the webinar, because this is an important step forward in our move to data-driven medicines regulation, i.e. the catalogues on real-world data and on observational studies. We have set out a vision on clinical evidence in the European Medicines Regulatory Network, where we want evidence generation to be planned and guided by data, knowledge, and expertise. We want research questions to drive the choice of evidence, embracing the spectrum of methods and data. We want clinical trials to remain core to our evidence generation, but to be smarter, better, and faster. And we want real-world evidence to be enabled and its value to be established. And throughout all of this work on evidence generation, we want the patient voice to guide us every step of the way. The publication of the real-world data catalogues brings the European Medicines Regulatory Network closer to data-driven regulation. It will improve discoverability of data, as this is one of the priorities set out in the 2020 report of the Big Data Task Force. It's also reflected, data discoverability is reflected in the European Medicines Agency's network strategy to 2025 and is clearly a priority in the Big Data Steering Group work plan. The initiatives and the catalogues that are going to be presented to you today build on more than 15 years of operation of former databases developed by the European Network of Centres for Pharmacoepidemiology and Pharmacovigilance, but it brings those catalogues into the current day and makes them future-proof. The new and improved catalogues that replace these two databases help medicines regulators, researchers, and pharmaceutical companies to identify the most suitable data sources to address specific research questions, and they support the assessment of study protocols and results. They aim to promote transparency, encourage use of good practices, and build trust in research based on real-world data. We believe they will also contribute to the anticipated creation of the European health data space, where cataloguing, discoverability, findability of real-world data is an important element. Overall, the development of these catalogues, we believe, is an important step forward, leading to European patients receiving better medicines faster and ensuring the safe and effective use of these medicines on the market. Thanks very much indeed, and I hand straight on to Jeppe.
Thank you very much, Peter. And also, just as Peter, he also just mentioned, it is one of the important steps on the road to get more data-driven medicines regulations that we are looking into. And this webinar today is also an important step on the way of showing you what is actually already available. So the main objectives of this webinar is we want to provide an overview of the HMA-EMA catalogues and show you what the data sources are we have within the real-world data, and also the studies, what the benefits are, and also how the case have a significance in regards to the regulatory practices. Then we also want to illustrate the approach on how can you use them, what are the user roles and responsibilities to enable them actually to be used also. And then we're going to conduct a short demonstration showcasing what are the key features of this platform now that we have shifted from the two databases, as Peter he mentioned. Finally, also one of the objectives is also actually to inform all of you about the supporting documentation, which is also available to you, both in regards to user guides and also FAQs, so we can optimize the use of these catalogs and actually enable them being a good step towards enabling this more data-driven medicines regulation in that sense. I think I'll pass the baton on to Paolo now, just for a short agenda of this webinar.
Thank you, Jeppe. So if we want just to go very quickly through the agenda for today, we will have 6 items basically. So we will have a presentation from Anna Cocchino on the catalog of real-world data source and studies. So she will give an overview of the catalog that we just launched. After that, we will have Stefania Simão demonstrating the platform and also introducing a questioning slide that we want to pose to all of you. After that, Anna Cocchino will also talk about which are the resources that are available to you in order to make best use of the catalogs, and also which are the possibility for you to get support. So, for example, how to contact the service desk in case you have troubles. And after, we will have a Q&A session where via Slido you can pose questions to us. And after, we will have some closing remarks, and we will talk maybe about next step. Without further delay, I would like to pass the floor to Anna Cocchino. She is a medical doctor working in data analytics task force at EMA, and she's at the moment leading activity around strengthening the role of real-world evidence in medicine regulation with a focus on data discoverability and data quality. Anna, over to you.
Thank you, Paolo. Good morning. It is my task this morning to run you through the HMA-EMA catalogs of real-world data sources and studies, and to familiarize you with the work that has been going for the past few years to lead up to the go live of these catalogs, and a few highlights that we would like to show to you. Can I have the next slide? Thank you. In terms of how did we get here? The roadmap to getting to a point where we had catalogs going live on 15th of February. It started, as you heard in opening remarks, with the Big Data Steering Group recommendations, the HMA-EMA joint initiative that set out to promote data-driven medicine regulation and put forward 10 priority recommendations to do so. On our piece of work, we have focused on promoting data discoverability. We set out in 2021 with a preparation work, a project named Minerva. You would see here the acronym being for metadata for data discoverability. We set up to do preparation work to find out what are the data elements that are best used for medicine regulation. So we have done a whole stakeholder engagement and requirements gathering to get to a point where we have collected a comprehensive set of metadata elements to characterize data sources. We have taken these comprehensive results and moved forward to discuss them in multi-stakeholder workshops with our stakeholders. We have follow up with wide-reaching surveys to get the best input on these results and to go towards a prioritization of the best data elements. Moving forward, in 2022, we published the results of this work, which is the list of metadata for data discoverability. We have this being an important milestone in our project, since from that point onwards, we were able to develop the catalogs based on this list of metadata that we have put forward. So in the next year, we have went ahead and migrated some of the NCEP resources and studies into these new catalogs. We have done the technical development that is entailed by developing such a project, which got us to the go live moment today. Can I have the next slide, please? So as I was saying, we went live with our catalogs on 15th of February this year. To do so, we have built upon some existing resources that we had. So we built on the real-world data sources, we built it on the NCEP resource database, whereas for the studies, we have brought in the EU PASS register, and we have done so in a more modern technology, and we moved these resources on our EMA public website for better visibility. So the catalog are primarily aimed at data sources useful in the context of medicine regulation, and they promote the use of real-world data sources and of observational study in the regulatory process. They're freely available via the catalogs webpage, which is hosted on our EMA public website. There's a user-friendly platform that is aimed at researchers, regulators, pharmaceutical companies, data source holders, and in general, the general public, and facilitates the search of data sources and studies really in connection to medicines, and ultimately aims to support evidence-based decision making. And at the bottom of the page, you would find the address where these catalogs are found. Next slide, please. I'll run you in a few slides on what we think is the most are the highlights, the most important features that we have aimed to develop with these catalogs. When it comes to data management, we have looked in all of our development work to be consistent and to work towards a fair catalog, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. We have these principles set out from the start. So we have developed globally unique and persistent identifiers with all of our entities, looking in the future to be able to work with other catalogs and data sources. We have a data management system built under the website that you can see that assists the user in data submission, that assists the data validation process. We have integrated the catalogs with the master data management system we run here at the agency, meaning that our control vocabularies are maintained in a centrally unified way, are publicly available, they can be used by other system, and thus going a step closer to interoperability with other systems. And lastly, we have set up a data validation module underneath that supports a data validation process that we conduct here at EMA prior to publication, aiming for good data, for updated data, and we're also monitoring the maintenance of these resources so that we make sure our data is of good quality and of and timely. The next slide, please. In terms of better access for everyone, we have went ahead and we implemented an enhanced search and export functionalities on the website. And during the demo, my colleague will show you exactly how. But we have made sure that we have a overarching search functionality that can bring up the best of the data that we have. There's a possibility to filter down, to sort the results, and this is any database. We also have export functionalities. We can export the results in an Excel or for reading in a PDF file. We did our best to make sure that the link between the data sources and the associated studies, wherever this information exists, to function and to be to be able to navigate it from data sources to studies and vice versa. And I'll go in details a little later. We are looking always to integrate with other initiatives, and in our next step, we want to integrate the information with the EMA website content. So studies to be visible on the relevant medicines overview pages, where, say, for a particular medicine, you could see the risk management plan, you can see product information and studies that have been run with a particular medicine. This is already implemented in the back, and we just need to switch a few buttons to turn it on. Next slide, please. In terms of what we provide for the user, the system now has a secure user management behind and a login through EU login, the European Commission's system. It's a multi-factor authentication service that is reliable and is used widely in various applications. The data management system built behind that I was referring, it helps also the user to submit data. There's a data validation on the form that helps to put the right information where it should be, highlights potential inconsistencies, and of course the integration with the master data management system also brings helps the user to submit data. There's the lookup values, structured data, and so forth. We have easy access and to manage content through the new platform is more user-friendly, and what it also offers is an option to collaborate on records with multiple authors. So it's a possibility on a particular study, on a data source, to have several authors collaborating on that content. And lastly, a system of email notifications in the back will assist to the users to know when the data was approved, rejected, also prompting to update when necessary, when a study needs update, when a data source hasn't been updated in a while. This feature also, we just need to turn it on shortly after go live. Next slide, please. In terms, so what data do we have there? We went live. What would you find there? We have prepared this moment for the past year or so to make sure that we have all the information available to us and in the public domain. So we have about 200 data sources or so. They come from various sources. One of them is data migrated from the NCEP resource database. As you heard in opening remarks, we have built on the experience of the past 10, 15 years that of data that has been gathered there. We have migrated it. We have contacted the respective data owners and asked to update the information there to be in a more up-to-date form. We have collected some resources also during the pilot that we have run, the Minerva pilot. We had some data sources that were collaborated with us to ensure that we are on the right track, and we have that information built in. We also have the data sources that have expressed interest during the Darwin EU open call and also expressed their agreement to be included in this catalog. We have that information also listed, some of the Eden partners, and there were other data sources that we have proactively approached in the preparation phase to be included due to the known database that is useful to us. In terms of studies, we have about 3,000 studies in there. They've been migrated from the former EU Pass register. The studies catalog now takes over the functions of the EU Pass register going forward. We have we have post-authorization studies, but not only. We have other observational studies submitted to us on voluntary basis, and we have things like studies that Darwin Network has run, some other EMA framework contract, and so on. There's a wealth of observational study that you would find here. Next slide, please. For data source holders, the participation in our catalog aims to increase the visibility of the data source, to promote the research community to use this given data source. We were looking into increasing the use of data by regulatory and public health agencies in evaluating the benefits and risk of medicines and in healthcare. It would facilitate the participation in EMA-funded studies and enabling a record to record a study in the studies catalog. The volume of published research would be increased when referencing a data source, and would guide research collaboration requests in being more targeted and more suited to the content of a database, looking at the other studies that were run with a particular data source. The next slide, please. A few examples you would that might perhaps give a bit more clarity on how exactly could our catalogs be used. One potential use case would be a researcher that would like to identify a suitable data source for a planned study. And you'd be able to come to our catalog, look, have information on the data source content. So, for instance, does it have medicinal product information? Does it have prescription refill, disease, demographics, which disease it has, and so on. So we have information on the content. We would have contact points to help contact the given data source, and it would allow benchmarking of different data sources referring to a similar population when planning a study. Coming from the direction of a study protocol submitted uses a data source. So an assessor, someone who would like to know more about this study, would do, perhaps a researcher, even a member of general public, would be able to understand the suitability of the data source proposed. They would come from the study direction, and they'd be able to see more information on the given data source, but also what other studies were run with it, and have a comprehensive view of that situation. The next slide, please. For a few slides, I will. They'll be just to give you a bit of an overview of what's inside in the helping. When I present the helping documents, I'll also guide you to where you would find these to browse through in your own time. But overall, what kind of information do we capture in our catalogs on data sources? We have. For one, we have administrative details, so things like the name of the data source, who's the data source holder, since when it was established, where's the financial support coming from, what type of data source is that, is it a biobank, is it a registry, what would you have there, the website, and so on. So the administrative bit. We have a quite extensive part on the data elements collected. So this is the content of that data source. What would you find there? Would you find information on the medicinal product, on a disease? Would you find outcomes? Would you find patient-generated data, biomarker data, hospital admission, smoking, pregnancy, and so on? So that's a whole section on what is in that data source. We have some quantitative descriptors looking at population age groups, percentage of population covered in the catchment areas of that population, a split by age where available, and the active population also split by age, again, where it's available. It gets in the fourth category. There's information a bit more meaningful for those of us with more data management skills, if you'd like. Governance details the application of a common data model or not, which common data model, how is the process of data collection run, what triggers the creation of record, what triggers the exit from a data source, and this type of information. And lastly, quite important for when running such a study, vocabularies. So we have detailed information on which vocabulary is used, if any, on medicinal product indication, procedure, and so on and so forth, cause of death. Next slide, please. So studies, again, to give you an overview, we're looking again at some administrative details, so identifiers for the studies, who's running it, what are the timelines of that study, where exactly is it run, who's funding it, if there's any regulatory details or not. Quite a large bit of this information goes into methodological aspects. So what is it that is being studied, in which population, what age groups, is there a population of interest, details on things such as this time period, data analysis plan, and so forth. And lastly, on data management, a look at some data quality checks, how was the data extracted, what data source was used, and so on. For next slide. So this is I would like to make it clear that we have the data behind this is stored in a network. So you would see data source. You can go from one to another. Data source uses a study. Study uses a data source. The institution owns a study. An institution owns a data source. So you would see here the way the data is structured in a bit of a three-dimensional way, if you'd like, in which you can navigate from one to another, and it facilitates the search and the retrieval of results. So we have built this system in such a way that is easily queryable from various angles through these links. Each entity you see here has an identifier. It can be reused, and it goes towards the interoperability part of the scope of the catalogs. Next slide, please. This, I believe, is my last slide, concluding slide. From everything I have talked to you this morning, our catalogs are working towards, for data visibility and accessibility. So it's looking to offer a user-friendly platform, easily accessible on the EMA public website, with dynamic pages and good search for real data sources and study, and a streamlined identification of data source for specific research question. We're looking to improve continuously and to aim towards interoperability. We have planned ongoing enhancements and developments on a monthly basis to refine what we have delivered to better suit the user's needs. We looking into promoting data interoperability in the future and collaborating with EHDS data source catalog once it's being developed. And lastly, in terms of transparency and collaboration, we're looking towards encouraging collaboration among the different actors by giving public access to study reports and results, towards a better informed decision on drug safety and effectiveness, and to contribute in this way to the collective effort to advance real-world evidence utilization. And with that, I think the next slide is moving on to a demonstration, which I hand over to my colleague Stefania. Thank you for your attention.